Today I will be painting a yucca from White Sands National Monument. Hi everybody, I'm Marion, the Inappropriate Artist. And that's never happened more perfectly. So, join me today as I paint this beautiful yucca in gouache on watercolor paper. And if you would like to support my journey, I am painting all 50 states. I have 29 under my belt so far. The van I'm in is starting to peter out. It's made it for 3 years. It's that in itself was pretty much a miracle. I've got to prolong its life while I save money for another vehicle. Please take this opportunity to check out my Patreon page. It is below. The more I can raise through Patreon to support my existence when the show is finished and I put it up for sale, all of those monies can then go toward purchasing a new home on wheels. That is the goal. So please check that out. All the links to support me are below. And now, without further ado, Yucca Love from White Sands National Monument. These are the supplies I'll be using today. My silver black velvet brushes, along with one liner brush. And then I have all of these beautiful Winsor Newton gouache color and one Graham watercolor. I'll list it all below. Now I'm going to begin by layering in my sky. I had a lot of fun doing this. I spend a lot of time removing the pigment and putting it back down again. I use a combination in my skies of the cerulean and the ultramarine blues, occasionally throwing in a tiny bit of the anthraquinone blue. That's what gives us that steely quality in the blue. And here you'll see me start to remove the color again and put it back down and remove it again. Eventually, I did change my mind on the cerulean. I wanted it to come out more turquoise in that lower line and within the clouds themselves. See, you see me there. While the pigment is still somewhat wet, I'm able to remove it in a nice clean line like that. And you see me throwing in even darker blues over the top of that. Now here's where I started to throw in a little bit of that turquoise blue. It was just the teeniest bit because I started realizing that I was running out of cerulean and wanted to try something different. This purple that I make is a combination of the anthraquinone blue and alizarin crimson. And here I go with that permanent white. You see what I'm doing there, layering that over the top. I want it to be nice and opaque. The color of my stalks is going to be changing, but very slightly, and you'll see that later on in the process. The delicate nature of these branches takes some patience and time and putting very little pigment on the brush in order to create these fine lines. Now I throw my purple on the brush and start getting some shadows in. And I adjust my purples based on what it is I'm trying to reflect, right? So the shadows themselves have deep color to them. Sometimes they're redder, sometimes they're bluer. It just depends. And here you see I'm using my purple in its form, which is kind of almost a muddy purple. And here now throwing in that permanent white. These are the blossoms. I'm beginning to lay the ground for a glazing technique with these blossoms. I want my permanent white to be thick and opaque. That is the important part because I cannot have any of that blue underneath, otherwise my blossoms will come out looking green. And all of this has to be done carefully as to not disturb what is beneath, because all of that can come back to life. The drop of a hat. Now throwing in more shadow. And here you see me begin the glazing process. I've put some of the cadmium-free yellow on my brush, and it's very transparent. So I have quite a bit of water within that as well. So what you're seeing is just a very light glazing process. That's the purple again going in to create my center shadows of these spent blossoms. When glazing, you really want to have as little pigment on your brush as possible when you're working with gouache. You don't want a lot of water in there either, because you're really just touching the color on the surface of the permanent white. What you have not seen is the shadows that I put in, the grasses in the background, and the color in the sand. All of those things are accomplished just very subtly. The sand itself, I used the alizarin crimson with zinc white and really just watered it way down and did a wash for the sand. Then the grasses in the background, a little purple, and then using the cadmium free yellow and the alizarin crimson created those colors, and then some zinc white on top. What you saw me doing with the yucca here was layering, starting with my shadows and working my way to the lights, and then going back and adding in more shadow. Basically using all of my colors to create these greens, right? So using both my anthracnone blue for the deep dark areas, and then putting little bits, that's what you see going on here, right? That blue going in. And then over the top of it, I will be putting the cadmium free lemon. And you see then it creates these variegated leaves, which the yucca out here have. And I had struggled with how I was going to create the illusion of this variegation until the last painting I did of yucca, and that sort of taught me a great lesson. This one, same thing. And I've thrown in little bits of permanent white and then put the lemon yellow over the top of that to create some real pop. Again, glazing. And now just finishing up some shadows here at the bottom, grounding everything. It's so important to ground your objects. I've learned that lesson the hard way. And there it is, my finished painting. I'm very proud of it. And yes, it has already sold, but if you are interested, like I said at the beginning, I have prints available on fineartamerica.com. The link is below at the top with a big smiley face. And here she is, White Sands Yucca Love. Thanks for joining me today, everyone. See you next time.